Ascendant in Pisces. Hi, welcome to my channel Zodiac Horoscopes. My name is Vala. Let's start. When we say that someone is from Pisces, it is because he was born between February 19 and March 20 approximately, period in which the sun transits that sign. Instead, to know if the ascendant is in Pisces, it is necessary to know the time and place of birth, because it is the sign that appeared on the horizon at the east point, at the moment of the first breath, and suggests a destiny to rely more and more on what is perceived, and less on what rationalizes. You will be marked by a destiny that will ask you to recognize increasingly your intuition and your ability to perceive subtle worlds and other planes of reality. Pisces is a changing sign, and like the other changing signs, Gemini, Virgin, and Sagittarius, proposes to acknowledge that his life is articulated to a surpassing order of personal desire, where each experience, however difficult it may seem, has a meaning beyond his individual understanding. Ascending Fish suggests a life full of experiences to discover the tool of the divine and learn to trust that there is something beyond the visible that moves the threads of your life, much more than in the lives of the other ascendants. The ascendant in Pisces witnesses to a greater or lesser extent illogical and confusing scenes in which he does not understand what is happening to him or why he is going through that experience. Life puts him where logic does not work, so that he learns to move from his intuition and sensitivity to recognize his extreme lovingness by living experiences in which he must take care of others without understanding why he is helping them. His destiny proposes to connect with the magic. In situations where he finds himself lost, he can perceive things that have no logic, like feeling guided by higher beings or acting roles that he does not want, but that he cannot avoid performing. It is worth differentiating. If your moon in Pisces, you need to live in your fantasies and in a resonant sensitivity. If you're from Pisces, you are hypersensitive and intuitive. If you are an ascendant in Pisces, you should learn to recognize your great intuition and your particular perception and resonance with the environment. To live an ascending life in Pisces is to deliver individual action, so that it is guided by purposes that transcend one's own will without being afraid. It is to accept that one feels the emotions of his environment as own. The more you resist the complexity of these challenges, the more you deny your destiny, and the more life will push you into confusing situations that you do not know how to clarify, or to be surrounded by chaotic people who marry you. Pisces is the last sign and is associated with closure, cleansing, and purification. It coincides with the time of the year when the sun transits times of Lent, associated to evaluation and repentance. Piscean destinies lead to the dissolution of who one believed to be. They are lives that soften the ego because they must be transmitted with deep devotion and compassion to recognize themselves increasingly resonant with all and all. But the more it insists on appearing orderly and logical, the more disorganized and confused it becomes. The life of an ascendant in Pisces can never be diaphane or clear to him, for it is driven by loving purposes that transcend him and that always act before his conscious self and lead him to act without the individual being able to realize what he is doing. His history is not about understanding his own purpose, but about developing a deep devotion and compassion in a life dedicated to service, art, music, self-knowledge, or religion. Pisces ascending organizes in a particular way the distribution of the signs by the houses of the birth card, but in some birth cards with ascending in Pisces, there may be a phenomenon called intercepted signs, which causes not all houses to coincide with the elements described here. In any case, the matrix of the ascendants and their corresponding distribution of elements and signs works the same. You only have to add more themes associated with the signs that are added and appear differently. Signs that do not match exactly what development adds, only information, scenarios, and learning, but do not disable what is specified below. How to plant different apprentices of a Scorpio ascendant individuality scenarios. Pisces in House 1. Empathic resonance to act or chaotic delusion to define the first sign that appears in the birth letter of an ascendant Pisces is Pine that initiates his birth letter of an ascendant Pisces is Pisces. It is the sign that initiates his birth letter or his house. one which is the same as the Ascendant. His personality of a sensitive and permeable nature leads him to discover that his way of coming out to the world is compassionate and resonant, as it dilutes into countless emotions that permeate and disorganize him every time he intends to make an important decision. His perception of the borderless world does not allow him to clearly understand what he wants or to act with logic or clarity. He feels what happens to others as his own, and overwhelmed in his overflowing record, becomes confused and chaotic in acting. Their difficulty in organizing into a coherent personality often intensifies fears and insecurities, giving, in some cases, excessive shyness or personalities of paranoid and aggressive structure, or even at the level of greater tension, will need to take refuge in addictions. The Ascendant in Pisces often navigate confused and delusional and unclear situations, and suffer recurrent deceptions, scams, or falls in love and idealizations, and, in extreme cases, even have mystical delusions. His life is a journey that requires developing humility to live as something natural, his particular record of other planes of reality without signing of selfish pedanticism, mystical delusion, or believing someone special and different. You must learn to distinguish between your fantasies and your true intuitions, and find a way to discern your real perceptions from your own imaginations and selfish delusions. In the face of such perceptive chaos, it tends to lock itself in a forcibly logical and rational world, and to structure an obsessive personality, which lives defensively and in aggressive or intellectualized ways to move away from others. He strives to live a life running away from his sensory permeability, to get away from his own feared Piscean energy. The more he polarizes in appearing to be logical, the more fate will bring him scenes of confusion and repeated deception. It can also become trapped in ties. It is difficult to clarify boundaries and cut relationships, as if it was difficult to regain its own identity after an important bond. In their claim to appear normal, many ascendants in Pisces take refuge in ordered and meticulous professions, such as accountants or mathematicians, where they try to order from numbers their chaotic personal reality. Far from being forced to be coherent, it should be allowed to be led intuitively and accepted in its loose and diffuse action. For the more impersonal and helpful its action, the more certain its plans will be. At an integrated level, the Ascendant in Pisces learns to rely on a fluid personal action that goes without having to understand where it is heading, since he is known to be pulled by a mysterious order that leads him toward the compassionate, the solidarity, and the spiritual. Your life is about letting yourself be moved by a loving will, much more merciful than the ego itself, where personal will dilutes and sails in a borderless world where we are all one. House 5 in Cancer. Loving ability to express and create or childish and fearful personality. The fifth sign of the Ascendant Pisces is Cancer, and suggests a protective, close, and sensitive style with careful, refined, and cautious ways to express itself. At a level of tension, Cancer can inhibit it and make it retreated and suspicious. It is not encouraged to express itself or to say what it feels because it is afraid of being ignored and criticized. The more he represses his expressiveness, the more he accumulates anger that will lead him at some point to express himself in unlocated forms, to denounce what he feels in unspoken or childish ways, and to make ridiculous and totally out of context demands of attention. At an integration level, Cancer in House 5 allows you to express yourself calmly and show yourself in affectionate and reliable ways. His personality does not need to be vanigled by what he does, as he is known to be driven by impersonal purposes and can even give him a smell of excessive self-promotion. That is why he avoids attracting attention with eccentric actions or excessive dramatism. He knows how to be very genuine and tell his story discreetly, enjoys expressing himself without the need for excessive applause and without provoking scandals. His style is loving, affectionate, and sensitive, and it radiates a particular tenderness that makes him credible, simple, and human. His artistic creations are genuine, popular, and accessible to everyone. Cancer in House 5 also reveals a very maternal relationship and a particular and profound tenderness to her children. He has the ability to love them as they are without pretending to change them, to accept them in their times, and in their forms, to accompany their growth without pressuring them. At a level of tension, Cancer in House 5 warns of a certain tendency to infantilize children, nesting them so that they depend and submit to their own will. House 9 in Scorpio, intense and profound commitment on your vocational path, or mistrust and power-ups in spaces of growth and transcendence. The 9th sign in the birth letter of the Ascendant Pisces is Scorpio and suggests an urgent and penetrating need to find answers and transcendent meanings in his life. Scorpio leads him to a complex and contradictory existential quest, which tends to make it difficult for him to find the course of life. For where he must surrender to his vocational fire, Scorpion suspicions and darkness activate. At a level of tension, House 9 in Scorpio exacerbates negative instincts and highlights darkness and demons, which inhibit and disrupt your ability to trust, and tends to set you in the role of the eternal questioner and respondent of any belief system or of any teaching or of any belief system or of any teaching or religious path. It also suggests complicated games of power in paths of self-knowledge or in areas of teaching and inconvenience with academic methods. Scorpio in House 9 can exacerbate the fascination for suffering and lead you to highlight misfortunes and deny opportunities, disappointing moments of happiness, and despise the small spaces of everyday happiness. Scorpio complicates the natural trust of House 9 as it suggests a great fear rooted in his belief system that conditions him to a life that despises happiness. The challenging sign of Scorpio often seeks too absolutist and totalitarian answers, and often finds more conflicts than answers when incursing into their spiritual searches. In his intense and rigorous quest for transcendence, he may also be fanatized with certain ideas about God, or absorbed in some religious realm where submission and suffering are venerated as qualities necessary to live a sacred life. At a level of greater integration, this existential inconvenience can lead you to engage in committed transcendent and spiritual searches. Scorpio in the 9th house proposes a particular wisdom of pain that understands that beyond the fear and suffering that all human life is going through, it is necessary to continue to seek transcendent answers, not to avoid pain or fears, but to recognize that by accompanying them with greater consciousness, suffering is more tolerated and fear is better overcome. His need to find transcendent meaning turns him into an innate philosopher and leads him to a life of intense, spiritual quest where the higher powers of his psyche can flourish. Scorpio in House 9 proposes to trust what he feels for himself without adhering to imposed beliefs, if they have not been validated by his own perception. If you adhere to dogmas that tell you what God is, you are not allowed to intuit the divine by yourself, nor do you assume the responsibility to communicate your perception of a vast and mysterious world. To perceive for himself, he must exercise himself in suspending his previous beliefs. It is not a question of not having beliefs in order to be able to perceive, but of being willing not to take refuge in them so that you can decode without prejudice the concrete, immediate, and repeated perceptive impacts that your porous and esoteric fish sensitivity produces. In addition, Scorpio is the gateway to foreign and other cultures. Scorpion veracity can lead you to feel urgent and permanent desires to always travel as far as possible. But it also points to a polarized way of relating to travel that can both fascinate him with delusional ideas of living abroad and lead him to overly and incoherently reject the idea of leaving his country and even become xenophobic. Scenarios of materialization, House 2 in Aries. Initiative power to generate through avant-garde themes or combativity and fighting for economic issues. The second sign of the Ascendant in Pisces is Aries and suggests encouraging himself to invest in projects that he likes, as the Arian quality gives him cutting-edge talents to invent and embark on innovative proposals that are reputable, but warns of some impatience and veracity that can complicate the good management of his assets. Aries, imprudent and fast in the area of investment and production, must strive to learn the totally antagonistic qualities of House II, where the rush and irreflection disrupt the coherence and perseverance needed to profits in their economic projects. Aries gives him a relationship of unconsciousness with his money, and can even lead him to do not care about the money to then contradict when he struggles heavily to reach the resources he needs. Your impatience and economic carelessness can easily turn into irresponsibility, and instead of helping you live a more compassionate and spiritual life, it will bring you conflicts, fights, and administrative misunderstandings. Also, it suggests a tendency to misuse the money. The irreflective and Vorus-Arian quality leads him to manage his resources with capricious criteria. At a more integrated level, Aries, courageous and determined, proposes to risk investing his money in projects that passionate him, as it will be easier for him to take care of and pay attention to his investments if they generate enthusiasm. Aries in the house, too, proposes to discriminate between passionate and burning when managing its resources, to invest it in goods and activities that excite it without burning quickly or wasting it. If you manage to occupy yourself enough time, enjoy and gain confidence in the management of your business, you can be a reference and pioneer, because you always think of new projects to generate work and money. The nature of his house, too, in Aries is independent and risky, so he always proposes to take care of his own investments and economic projects and pay less and less attention to what others think. House 6 in Leo. Powerful leadership to organize the everyday or difficulty to delegate and stress to adapt to restrictive situations. The sixth sign of the Ascendant Pisces is Leo and suggests the particular importance that it will be for him to allow himself to live his daily life according to his own rhythm, finding original and creative ways of working and of facing his daily reality. A fiery and impatient Leo must learn to fit into House 6, which requires order, observation, and measurement. At a level of stress, this complex combination can lead you to suffer the routines and obligations of everyday life and be connotative whenever you have to observe orders, schedules, or routines, as you do not like to submit to schemes or guidelines. At an integration level, Leo in House 6 suggests learning to listen to your body and know how to take care of yourself according to your own tastes. Respect yourself and what you need, and maintain eating and rest habits that respect your personal rhythms. His body health, activated by the radiant leonine vitality, becomes primary, and if he knows how to listen and respect his rhythms and needs, it suggests great body vitality. The leonine quality present in everyday work needs to be recognized, often in a disproportionate way, and to feel that no recognition is sufficient. Far from being offended, he should accept that his excessive need for applause cannot be satisfied and, instead of expecting praise from others, commit himself heartily to his daily tasks, beyond whether it achieves visibility or recognition. In order for daily work to become a space of creativity and joy, you must stop expecting recognition from outside and become enthusiastic and motivating of your peers. Leo in the House 6 suggests the importance of feeling useful in your daily work and occupying your days with tasks that passionate you, that do well, and that improve your environment. Her identity is revitalized and recycled whenever she feels she does something for others. She likes to work on community service issues, and it is common for her to participate in solidarity actions. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe. House 10 in Sagittarius. Expansive profession and openness to the world, or exaggerated social and professional delusions. The 10th sign of the Ascendant Pisces is Sagittarius and suggests high labor expectations and a great desire to build a better world. But Sagittario can give you excessive ideals and fantasies that do not allow you to go patiently building that ideal society with which you dream. At a level of tension, Sagittarius positivism clashes with the harsh demands of reality. The confidence to pursue its visions of a fairer world is frustrated by the first real-world demands. Sagittarius finds it difficult to stop, and at the first legal requirement or the first obstacle he tends to come down and abandon his projects because he feels too sensitive to face the hostility and demands of the world. The key will be to succeed in sustaining the Sagittarian momentum, to stop to observe the real state of society around you, and from that objective look, to recognize which of all your wonderful dreams are truly possible to shape. If you get a proper perception of the needs of your social and work environment, you can understand how to act and do your best. To help the world, you must first find out about their needs. At an integrated level, Sagittarius in House 10 suggests the ability to put all of yourself with optimism and enthusiasm to continue to bet on improving your small work world or the whole world. He proposes not to lose confidence in his visions of a better society, and to work to build it by unleashing excessive spells and fascinations. The Sagittarian quality in the highest area of the birth card always suggests being overtaken and associated jobs to become a guide or teacher, or also interested in languages and studies that give a broader view of the world. You can work in education, personal growth, or artistic areas. He may also be engaged in politics or social tasks in his ambition to change the world, or in work associated with abroad and other cultures. At a level of tension, the Sagittarian quality in the workplace can lead you to get bored frequently in your jobs and to be always looking for new challenges, enchanted by finding an ideal job that never appears, or end up working in chaotic and crowded spaces where you will have to deal with people and bosses altanerous and dogmatic. The House 10 in Sagittarius also symbolizes the bond with the authority, and with the father in particular, and proposes an enlarged or generous relationship. At an integration level, the father may be ennobled or idealized by his professional position, or by projecting in him a figure of kindness and trust. Instead, at a level of tension, there may be an exaggerated need to idealize the father, or to invent a father because the father remained untouched or absent, and had to be armed with a fictional or imaginary personality. Link scenarios. House 3 in Taurus. Power and solidity in fraternal communication, or boldness and capriciousness to listen and connect. The third sign of the Ascendant Pisces is Taurus, and suggests the need to feel confident of what you think before you speak. Take time to understand and learn to then communicate, with calm tones and modes that convey firmness and solidity. At a level of tension, this combination may manifest a great mental dullness that holds on to its own ideas, and has little ability to listen or include opinions different from its own. The less he accepts the complexity of everything he perceives, with his Piscean sensitivity, the duller his words become to avoid showing his mental chaos. He takes refuge in uncompromising ideas to conceal his confusion, and also is often surrounded by confused and delusional people, whom he needs to restrict with taurine firmness, so as not to be confused with what he is told, or to get lost in his delusions. At an integration level, the taurine quality proposes to trust in your receptive ability and allow yourself to listen without losing yourself, no matter how crazy the opinions of your environment are, because this way you can process every word, digest it, calm down, and simply listen without reaction. Taurus proposes to listen to what they say without rushing to draw conclusions or having to quickly agree or confront. Dialogue without censorship or prejudice to let the new ideas go macerating in his mind, allowing him to decant the new concepts and to slowly realize which of them nourish him and are worth considering. On an integration level, Taurus in House 3 trains you to explore variables and communicate them in convincing and seductive tones so that they can truly be heard and taken into account. Your taurine word embellishes and lulls, and can even lead you to obtain concrete benefits and economic gains through speech, teaching, or writing. Taurus in House 3 proposes that his ideas do not remain only on an abstract or speculative level, and that he put them into practice with concrete actions. The powerful weight of the taurine knows how to discern what things are important to communicate, and say them with decent honesty and timely contundence. The taurine quality in the area of negotiations can also make you an efficient negotiator who reaches agreements and brings together people and projects that others could never bring together. Likewise, House 3 in Taurus describes his early relationships with peers, brothers, cousins, and companions, and at a level of tension, warns of a certain tendency to feel them as too comfortable, heavy, thirsty, or boring people, and also indicates personal firmness or meekness that does not allow him to open up to understand them and love them in their differences. Taurus in House 3, at an integration level, proposes to accept these ties as they are, so that relationships of fidelity and solidity arise where it is possible to relax, and always trust them. House 7 in Virgo, order and pragmatism in a couple or criticism and restriction in the bonding of two. The 7th sign in the birth letter of the Ascendant Pisces is Virgo and suggests another that organizes and that helps to define and to order, but warns about a too critical and prejudiced couple. A disciplined and pointy Virgin at one level of integration suggests a couple that brings coherence and practicality, but at a level of tension warns of the excessive realism that the other one intends to impose on his life, and that can be lived as too judgmental and limiting. Relationships of two order, but also demand and restrict. To be able to benefit from the practicality that he discovers with another, he will first have to overcome frustrations and disenchantments, because the couple lowers him to reality, so that his life becomes more efficient and resolute, but the realism that the other person prints often includes too many disappointments. The Ascendant in Pisces lives enchanted and fantasies an infinity of romance that, when shaped into real relationships, often disenchant and disappoint him. The people you attract are very different from what you've imagined, and although you generally perceive them as bitter and discouraging, you can't help feeling attracted to them. House 7 mirrors his own virgin qualities of necessity of order, and therefore he feels irrationally captivated by critical people who propose to systematize and understand himself a little more. Couple relationships bring realism, attract obsessive or intellectualized people who seem to be the opposite of their chaotic personality. Or, on the contrary, if your whole life has resisted your Ascendant in Pisces, you can also fall in love with your denied and incoherent Piscian quality, and feel irremediably seduced by people mirroring your own and disconcerting unrecognized Piscian energy. The couple reflects their own shadow to him. The other is a relentless mirror of their own delusions, and can fall in love with both delusional people and someone rational and ruthless who orders their own inconsistencies. The more nonsense appears in their love relationships, the more they denounce their own repressed delusions. In extreme cases, they may even fall in love with people with addictions or characters with mystical, lying, or inconsistent deliriums. Commercial societies are also activated through the sign of Virgo and suggest efficiency and pragmatism in business if you tolerate to incorporate another who puts limits and guidelines to their labor fantasies, because to operate from two is usually more effective and redemptible. Also, at a level of tension, it can attract confused partners to whom it is difficult to set limits, and that leads you to get lost in work complications, scams, or financial losses. House 11 in Capricorn, pragmatic realism or coldness and distance from friends. The 11th sign of the Ascendant Pisces is Capricorn and suggests that his relationships and friends confront him with the objective reality that can frustrate him or bring him pragmatism. Others give you sensibility to your ideas, and it will depend on your maturity how much you can take advantage of what others are asking you to make your projects realistic and possible. In order for this Ascendant to really connect with others, he would first need to overcome his own spells and endure others frustrating his fantasies. The more delusional your ideas and projects are, the more limitations and frustrations you will feel when you want to share them. At a level of tension, you may feel that your surroundings just disappoint you and criticize you. On the other hand, at an integration level, that very 11th house in Capricorn allows you to disenchant your delusions and help you focus on projects and plans that are truly worthwhile. At an integration level, Capricorn in House 11 proposes to stop fantasying with how different his life could be if others understood it, to commit himself to becoming someone more understandable to make his projects understandable and practicable. Trust that if you accept group objections, your life will take creative flight. Even if your first impulse is to shut up and feel misunderstood by your environment, the more you manage to sustain yourself in teamwork, the greater efficiency and solidity appear in your destiny. Capricorn at an integration level in House 11 suggests strong pragmatism and efficient perception of ideas that can be shared with others to make them reality. Suggests becoming a constructor of the world of the future, with maximum responsibility and consciousness in the present that encourages the rest to build that future with which he dreams. Emotional scenarios. House 4 in Geminis. Intellectual ability to name complex emotions and understand your family or emotional duality. And family lies the fourth sign of the Ascendant Pisces is Gemini, and suggests an intelligent and intellectual emotional refuge, albeit detached and frivol. The Ascendant in Pisces captures a much more comprehensive and subtle reality than his House 4 in Geminis, reaches to understand from his rational perception, and therefore refuses to the intellectual to distance himself from his overlowing sensory contact. His rational basis is insufficient to explain the subtlety of everything he perceives, and for this reason he ridicules or justifies what he intuits with small reasoning and insubstantial words. His fate proposes to him to stop pretending to understand all the energetic symphonies he perceives, and to immerse himself in the oceanic waters of the collective unconscious. As a talent, the House 4 in the sign of Gemini has the investigative capacity to discover untold stories about its origin, and often finds contradictory family accounts, unclear and full of inconsistencies, deceptions, lies, and betrayals. Duality and the playful spirit may have formed part of a family plot of little commitment to the truth, along with a bond with a probably childish or superficial mother to whom it was lived as someone very dual, intelligent and occurring, but also dubious and trivial. Generally, the childhood of these ascendants was spent in homes with unclear patterns and plagued with ambiguities. In the family, the roles were confused. The mother functioned as a sister, or there were deceptions and betrayals that nobody told, but that anyway this ascendant captured them. The contradiction between what was said and what the person intuited left a sign of mistrust in his own perceptions, and left a mark of lying as a way of relating that then led him also to deceive, and self-deceive, and self-deceive. There is usually a mist with regard to the past itself, a lack of clarity in memorizing and ordering memories chronologically, which contributes to the construction of a confused and distracted personality structure, with a tendency to charlatanism and lies. He takes refuge in superficial words and excuses not to connect with the vastness of what he feels, or shields himself in a fun and informal style to shudder and deny everything he captures. When he wants to explain what he perceives, he becomes hyper-rational and seeks to be intelligent by quoting phrases or repeating ideas of others, masking himself in a superficially intellectual style. At an interesting level, House 4 in Geminis relies on her lucidity to communicate her perceptions and name the unexplained. Twins and his loud intelligence, well integrated into the basis of his birth letter, enables him to hush and uncover plots untold in his family stories. Livian and curious, allows you to ask without pity, and know how to play with the right words to clarify difficult and hidden situations. Geminis, at the root of his psyche, knows how to name the puzzles of life, and is made easy to explain the mystery. Libra in House 8, talent to resonate deeply with others or tendency to disengage and not deepen when there are conflicts, the 8th sign of the Ascendant Pisces, is Libra, and suggests a great ability to put itself in the place of the other, but warns an excessive need to be accepted that conditions it to appear to be correct, or to be too attentive to the opinion of others. Libra in House 8 suggests that you must overcome your fears of not being loved. You must die your need to go well. Heal and transcend your desire to please at all costs, or to feel normal and included. To allow yourself to show your complexity of perceptions and intuitions. Libra in House 8, far from concealing what he perceives as negative of himself, proposes to enlighten him and integrate him to act more and more compassionate and constructive with himself and with others. It will have to transcend a level of the Libyan that perceives us as separate individuals, transcending the separativity of the ego to allow ourselves to see life in an esoteric way, where we are all part of one soul. to transcend the idea that the other is a stranger and therefore does not matter his suffering, to overcome the belief that what happens to the neighbor does not affect me and it is possible to remain safely locked up in his own life. The fate of the Ascendant in Pisces will dilute the boundaries of his identity to lead him to live in real communion with life flowing through all others. Libra in House 8 suggests transforming the concept of the other different to understand life as an inclusive whole, to discover that the other is the same energy as one, for we all respond to the same vibration. There are no differences or distances. All individuals are droplets of consciousness in a great ocean of human souls. Your life requires a quantum leap from understanding the other as part of yourself and starting to see the bonds as the energy poles that always reveal information about ourselves. To live from this way of perceiving the world is to live a healing life, free from guilt because it includes the other as part of one, and leads us to evolve to a diametrically different level of human consciousness. House 8 in Libra is also associated with the way to share money and energy with others, and often makes it difficult for you to discriminate between yourself and others. In your confusion to clarify what you want, or give little importance to personal possessions, usually generates more chaos and conflict. The House 8 in Libra may leave you trapped in confusing assumptions where no one is encouraged to clarify anything, or in complicated dependencies to submissive people from whom you should separate as soon as possible, but who nevertheless are difficult to discriminate against. At an integration level, it can also be a talent that collaborates with empathy and fairer distribution of goods. Libra in House 8 suggests, although the person probably does not know, that at the time he was born there were binding disagreements that jeopardized the harmony of his family environment, couple conflicts or pacts that were not respected between the adults in his environment, and that left him unconscious fears to take advantage of himself and enjoy his property, which irrationally lead him to give up his own so as not to generate further conflicts again. House 12 in Aquarius. Fraternal resonance with humanity or coldness and emotional disconnection, the 11th sign of the ascending Pisces, is Aquarius, and suggests a particular ability to perceive the unity of all humanity. Aquarius, universal and fraternal, understands that humans are not so different from each other because we all have similar things. He feels in his soul the whole of humanity beyond economic or political boundaries, and although such oceanic capture may overwhelm him, the Aquarius air can also help him to distance himself and not be overwhelmed by such perception. In a level of tension, Aquarius leads him to show himself cold and detached, to move away and protect himself from his perception of extraordinary unity. It allows him to observe and explain the vastness of what he intuits in a disconnected and even uncarnate style, as if nothing affected him personally, as if he was a narrator of what happens to others who observes at a distance how much human beings suffer. His unconscious fascination with Aquarius can catch him in a disconnected personality that avoids at any cost to get lost in that unexplained and diluent vastness that Pisces proposes to him. He becomes distant and becomes the chancellor and the disadvantaged of everything that happens around him, and usually plays an ironic personality that denounces hurtful truths that no one else dares to confess. At a more interesting level, Aquarius, resonating in the collective unconscious, intuits what the community or its environment needs to understand. It gives you clarity and openness to reveal universal spells of dependence and submission that continue to be reproduced, but that are already obsolete and need to be transcended. It denounces the ancestral and human fear of showing ourselves different by the fear of feeling exiled, and by understanding the irrational fear of being different. It can denounce it to free us from preconceived patterns and allow us to express ourselves to each one as we are, without the need to pretend or appear a personality to be able to fit or be accepted. In the life of the Ascendant in Pisces, the boundaries of what society considers reality are not so clear. Even life and death are not so strongly delimited, for in their loose perception of reality, The planes are mixed and confused and can even perceive beings of another order, who can communicate or frighten him and delude him, or defend themselves even more in his skeptical and intellectual style. The house 12 in Aquarius asks you to trust in your ability to perceive these other planes without being frightened or fascinated, proposes to accept that there is another order of reality much more stable than society enables, and that most people are not allowed to record it. Summary of the Ascendant in Pisces modality. Mutable, changing, element. Water, sensitivity. Learning by destination, sensitive adaptability, shaman. Intuitive leader, solidary and resonant curator. Tendency, stick to a rational, skeptical, or distant style. It suffers. Confusing perceptions and ideas. Chaotic ties and, in extreme cases, cheating. Regent planet. Neptune, formerly regent Jupiter, part of the body that governs and of special vulnerability. Defeat, fundamental learning period, from 35 to 42, has its extreme perception base that overflows from 7 to 14 and could develop more clearly after 49. Life mission, to intuit the needs of the world and express them from art and therapies. Misunderstanding of the mission, getting caught in impossible delusions. Distribution of signs for ascending in Pisces. Their action destination is Pisces. Generate with Aries. Communicate with Taurus. Emotionally stabilize with Gemini. Express with Cancer. Arranging with Leo. Complement with Virgo. Transform with Libra. Trask Scorpio. Working with Sagittarius. Open new projects with Capricorn. Resonate with Aquarius. If this ascendant finds a way to integrate these proposals, it will. A destination where you can trust your resounding intuition. Generate with courage and enthusiasm. Communicate in sensually strong ways. Be emotionally open and communicative. Express yourself with protective sensitivity. Organize with creative leadership. Complement themselves with discernment and effectiveness. That crises allow him to understand things by incorporating the other's gaze. Trust in your own power and commitment. Work with confidence and passion. Opening up to the new with realism and pragmatism. Resonate with new and revolutionary paradigms. If this ascendant does not find a way to integrate these proposals, he will suffer. A destiny of eternal delusions, misunderstandings, and confusion. Generate resources by fighting and fighting. Communicate capriciously and imposing your ideas. Being emotionally dual and liar. Show yourself as a childish and reactive person. To organize their everyday life in tyrannical and selfish ways. Complement yourself with cold and obsessive modes, becoming hysterical in the face of every crisis and moving away from what is important. You can't trust because you always need to control. A demanding and dogmatic world of work. Friends to whom he feels very cold and demanding. Escape and disconnect to not commit. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe.